Admiral Lutyens remained unaware of the fact that he actually got rid of his pursuit and didn't maintain radio silence, allowing code breakers at Bletchley Park to determine the Bismarck's approximate position.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Okay, so today is a really cool reaction. So this is about the hunt for the Bismarck. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the Bismarck. I know a lot of y'all were recommending videos like the Sabaton video and whatnot. There's a lot of cool videos out there. This one particularly is from a YouTube channel called Baz Battles, which they have a lot of like history focused stuff. So I'm really excited to get into it. If you guys want to see more like history focused reaction videos, you can recommend some good ones down in the comment section. Again, I don't know a whole lot about the Bismarck, so it should be a good one. Now, real quick, if you guys are interested in checking out the merch, you can check the link down in the description. This is actually one of the new shirts I got, and I think it honestly came out pretty well. It fits pretty well. So if you guys are interested, link is in the description. But this is like a really cool video. So let us get into it.
It's late May of the year 1941. A two-ship German battle group attempts to break off into the Atlantic on its mission to raid Allied merchant convoys. But due to an unplanned string of events, German commander Admiral Lutyens is compelled into facing the Royal Navy's home fleet, attempting to prevent the Bismarck from entering the open Atlantic. A fierce artillery trade-off ensued, resulting in the sinking of HMS Hood, a symbolic British warship. Enraged, the Royal Navy now employs every possible means to track down and destroy the German raiders.
Yeah, it's personal
The hunt
now.
has begun.
All right.
While the hunt for the Bismarck is on, you too can rule the seas. This video is sponsored by World of Warships.
I see where this is going. I mean, it's a good segue. I'm not going to hit on it too much. All right, there we go.
It is the cool, breezy morning of the 24th of May, 1941. A mere hour has passed since the German task force sank the iconic HMS Hood and considerably damaged another British capital ship, HMS Prince
Didn't know
of
about
Wales,
this battle.
forcing her to retreat. Both German vessels saw great elation among their crews following the spectacular victory. But the commander of the battle group, Admiral Lutyens, was already preoccupied sketching plans for the immediate future.
Come to think of it, I don't even know how big the Bismarck was. When I think about it and I hear like the Bismarck, it seems like a battleship that was bigger than most. So I don't know how it compares to the other battleships that it's going against. But we can see here, battleship and a heavy cruiser. And again, I spent a little bit of time on ship, but some of the older ships, I can't really tell the difference between a heavy cruiser and a battleship. Of course, the battleship's probably going to have a little bit more armaments, but yeah, I don't even know how big it is.
He had no doubt that the threat posed by the Royal Navy was only temporarily deterred. The most impending problem for the Germans was the damage that the Bismarck sustained in the course of the recent battle.
Okay.
2 hits dealt by the Prince of Wales caused the pride of the German Navy to both leak precious fuel and at the same time allowed a couple thousand tons of salt water into another compartment, which made her slightly list to port and down by the bow. Technically, it wasn't a huge issue though, as the ship's artillery, propulsion, and even the crew remained intact. But with less than 3,000 tons of fuel available, Lutyens had a narrow set of options to choose from.
That's so much.
Operation Rheinübung was no longer feasible due to the Bismarck's damage affecting her range, and the plan was no longer a secret to the Royal Navy, which,
here they come,
as Lutyens expected, was about to use all available means to neutralize his task force.
Yeah, you don't mess with the Royal Navy.
Had to either turn and use one of the available passages to get back to the nearest friendly ports in Norway, or carry on into the North Atlantic and eventually reach the safe haven of German-occupied France. The Norwegian option seemed more reasonable, but Lutyens expected the possible presence of British heavy units in the area between them and Scapa Flow, and considered this route as too risky.
So I wonder who on the Royal Navy side was actually deciding where to put the ships. Because again, these are like the 2 best courses of action for the Germans. So I wonder who is like kind of trying to counter that. I don't know a whole lot of like the big figureheads or the big names that were on like the German Navy and the Royal Navy side. So maybe this video will shed some light on some of those key players during the war.
Instead, he decided to steam towards Saint-Nazaire.
Oh,
the French coast was further away, but the route through the open Atlantic offered a better opportunity to shake off the British pursuers and a much better position to attack Allied convoys once the Bismarck was fully operational again. Moreover, Lutyens successfully used the French option months earlier, coming back to the port of Brest with 2 other German battle cruisers.
That's pretty risky.
Still, the Bismarck's group was shadowed by 2 British heavy cruisers equipped with superior radar,
the Suffolk and the
followed by the
Norfolk.
damaged HMS Prince of Wales.
Nice.
So the chase group under Admiral John Tovey had reliable information on the German positions. The problem was that Tovey's force was more than 350 miles away, and the damaged Bismarck was still able to cruise at 28 knots, about
Dang.
the same.
28 knots seems pretty quick. So 1 knot is like 1.1 mile per hour. So that's probably like 30 or 31 mile per hour, which seems pretty decent for something like an old battleship. I can't imagine they would go much faster than that. I know the cruisers, I mean, just judging by the name, probably go faster, but that seems like a pretty decent speed, especially for a ship that was damaged already.
Speed as that of the British heavy warships were capable of. Thus, unless she was slowed down, there was little chance of her being intercepted. In the late afternoon of the 24th of May, Lutyens took advantage of a rain squall, made a sharp turn to starboard, and briefly engaged with the trailing British group,
Oh, snap.
granting cover for the undamaged Prince Eugen to detach unseen and steam away to harass Atlantic convoys.
Wow.
The Bismarck resumed her original course, with all 3 British ships now trailing to her port side. But several hours later, a new threat emerged. One of Tovey's ships, aircraft carrier HMS Victorious, adjusted her course,
snap.
which eventually enabled her to launch a squadron of torpedo bombers in an attempt to damage and slow down the Bismarck.
Aircraft carriers
Yet
are a game
inexperienced
changer.
pilots mistakenly prepared to attack HMS Norfolk, which alerted German anti-aircraft gunners, who immediately
Are you
opened fire
serious?
at the
Oof.
enemy. But none of the attacking planes were shot down, and the British were able to launch 9 torpedoes at the Bismarck, though only
Okay,
one
nice.
reached its target, hitting the battleship's main armor belt with no significant damage.
Oh man, those pilots
Soon,
probably got
the
a
chase
reprimand.
entered open waters, and the pursuers were forced to adopt zigzag maneuverings in order to avoid German U-boats that might have been patrolling the area.
Oh, yeah, you gotta watch out for
according
those.
to British intelligence reports. As a result, the Bismarck was repeatedly out of range of Suffolk's radar. Coincidentally, Lutyens ordered a 270 turn to starboard, hoping to break off radar contact, circling behind her pursuers. Luckily, this move worked, and the German
Wow.
admiral adjusted his course to France,
Dude.
fooling the British at the same time, who upon losing radar contact, steamed west at first, and then, early in the morning, dispersed to seek the Bismarck visually.
Oh, that must be really scary for them to lose sight or lose track of that ship. I mean, again, technology back then wasn't as good as it is now. I don't even know if now that might still be feasible with today's technology. It is definitely bold, especially with the other ships that are sort of trailing behind. But I mean, I guess it paid off. It's really cool to hear about these naval captains just coming up with these like very risky maneuvers and seeing how it actually pays off.
It came as a shock for the British Admiralty, as many of the Royal Navy ships were already low on fuel, and the actual
snap.
position of the enemy battleship was now a mystery. From then on, the plan to neutralize the warship which sank HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, hung in the balance. But just like the British, the Germans were also making mistakes. Admiral Lutyens remained unaware of the fact that he actually got rid of his pursuit and didn't maintain radio silence
Oh,
code
snap.
breakers at Bletchley Park to determine the Bismarck's approximate position and that she was steaming towards the French coast.
Good stuff.
Hope sparked again as the narrow search area gave a small chance to locate the Bismarck's position before she
British
could make
intel.
it safely into the range of the Luftwaffe operating from French air bases. The odds were still against the British though, as HMS Prince of Wales, Suffolk, Victorious and Repulse were forced to break off the search due to fuel shortages. This meant that Admiral Tovey's only capital ships still in action were the HMS King George V and the old battleship HMS Rodney. Both
So I know in the U.S. Navy, there's something called an unrep. I think that's what it's called. But basically, it's when a ship will come and they'll basically like drive next to another ship and give them supplies or fuel or whatnot. And they kind of rope together to make it a little bit easier. But I wonder if they had that sort of capability back in the day. I'd imagine that would be something that you would like to do or strive for, but I'm not sure how accessible that capability was. So yeah, I guess fuel must have been a pain in the butt, and it's crazy how much fuel they can actually hold and burn through.
Far away from the Bismarck's approximate position. In the morning of the 26th of May, the British Navy had a much-needed stroke of luck, as one of the Catalina flying boats, which had flown from its base on Loch Earn in Northern Ireland, accidentally spotted the trail of the oil slick on the sea.
Nice.
Shortly, the Bismarck was located just short of 700 miles northwest of Brest.
Got him.
Seemingly, this was good news, but a position also meant that in less than a day, the Bismarck would reach the safe area covered by the Luftwaffe and U-boats. Time was running out, and the only chance the British had to intercept the German battleship was the Force H, a naval formation based in Gibraltar, under the command of Vice Admiral James Somerville. As soon as Somerville was informed of the Bismarck's position, he detached a light cruiser, HMS Sheffield, to shadow the enemy and commanded the carrier, HMS Ark Royal, to immediately launch torpedo bombers.
That's very
familiar. But the first squadron was not informed of Sheffield's orders and mistook it for the Bismarck.
Oh my gosh!
The drop torpedoes were equipped with new yet unreliable magnetic detonators, and HMS Sheffield remained unscathed.
Good grief.
Subsequently, the second squadron of Swordfish was launched, but this time equipped with older contact detonators. On this occasion, the aviators picked the target correctly, and despite heavy anti-aircraft fire, the torpedo attack finally yielded some results.
Good stuff.
The Bismarck was hit twice, as one torpedo hit mid-ship with minor damage, and another exploded at the stern, jamming both battleships' rudders. Damage control teams managed to repair the starboard one, but the port rudder remained blocked at a turning position.
Man, it's so, like, regardless of whatever side you're talking about, it's so admirable to see all the crazy stuff that these guys can do. Being on a ship is like one thing, but when you're on a ship during World War II and you're getting attacked and whatnot, it can get so crazy, so hectic, and it must be extremely scary to be getting attacked on a ship because, I mean, realistically, there's nowhere to go. You're focusing entirely on taking care of the ship, so honestly, mad respect for anyone who's doing that sort of stuff because it must have been absolutely terrifying.
This meant that the Bismarck lost her maneuverability and was unable to escape, being just a few hundred miles away from the safe zone. But even with crippled mobility, her powerful armaments and fire control systems were intact, a sufficient reason for bigger British vessels to keep their distance.
No doubt. 6
destroyers kept the Bismarck busy with torpedo attacks during the night, but it was not until the next morning when the final battle occurred. Eventually, the 3 remaining ships of Admiral Tovey's home fleet loomed on the grey horizon, preparing for a final battle. HMS Rodney and HMS King George V drew and fired first salvos at the slow-moving Bismarck.
This animation is awesome.
The German battleship returned fire with her forward turrets, yet managed to only fire short of HMS Rodney, as her ability to aim accurately was somewhat decreased due to erratic movement caused by the jammed rudder.
Dang, that's hard.
But the British shells soon reached their target, causing initial damage and fires to break out on board.
That's scary stuff.
The 2 heavy cruisers joined the battle and aimed their turrets at the strafed German battleship. For the next 90 minutes, the Bismarck suffered relentless British fire as hundreds of shells struck the venerable German battle vessel, causing massive damage to the ship and huge casualties to the crew. Yet despite this persisting cannonade and detonating the scuttling charges by her crew, the Bismarck refused to sink. As Tovey's warships were dangerously low on fuel and shells, he sent them back to port, leaving HMS Dorsetshire to finish the job. Eventually, at 10:39 on the 27th of May, the Bismarck went under the waves. A little more than 100 of her sailors were rescued, while the majority that managed to abandon the sinking Bismarck were left to the mercy of the water, as British ships left the scene after the U-boat alarm. More than 2,000 German sailors shared the fate of the iconic
Whoa,
battleship.
2000.
The loss of the Bismarck was a heavy blow for the Kriegsmarine and also became a turning point in the war on Allied commerce convoys, as from that point on, German Naval Command abandoned the idea of using capital ships for raiding in favor of U-boats, which wreaked havoc on the northern Atlantic for the next 2 years.
No doubt.
Still, the famous 8-day-long voyage of the Bismarck became a highlight of the Battle of the Atlantic
That's
and one of the most
insane.
popular events of the Second World War.
Just in 8
Europe.
days. That's crazy. Oh, this is kind of cool. Oh, snap, okay. Ship's cat. Okay. Well, that's nice. Okay, man, that was an awesome video. Again, the animations, I love the animations like this. It's not like over the top, and it gives a good appreciation for everything that was going on. And it's like, you know, pretty respectful. It's not done in like a weird cartoony way. So I do like that. Really, really awesome video. So again, just the span of 8 days is insane. Like, you hear about like old wars, like the Civil War or something, like the US Civil War, where you had battles that took like actual months, and then you have this crazy naval battle that happened over the course of 8 days. And it's crazy. It must have been horrible for the crew. I'm sure they didn't really get a whole lot of sleep that entire time, but holy cow, over 2,000 sailors died during that. I mean, that's an insane amount. I don't even know how many people are on like a modern day ship. I'd imagine it's probably around 2,000 when the Marines are on there, but that must have been a pretty massive ship to have a crew that size. And yeah, just getting like fired on for what? I think it said 90 minutes or something. Sheesh. Yeah, that's crazy. So I didn't know that Bismarck was sunk in 1941. I thought it was a little bit later on in the war. So yeah, it's nice to get these videos. It really adds to your perspective and gives you a little bit more knowledge. Again, I didn't know a whole lot about the Bismarck. I don't know about y'all. If you have anything to add to this video, definitely throw it down in the comment section, especially some of those like smaller anecdotal stuff like we saw with the cat there. If you have anything to share from any story you read or any book you read, definitely throw it down in the comment section, because it'd be awesome to sort of expand our knowledge even more so after watching this video. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a really, really solid one. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more history focused stuff, you can drop those recommendations down below. But thank you guys for watching. That is it for this video. I'll see you on the next one.